Maturity is this: we are only as mature as our understanding and application of the gospel. We're only that mature. As much as we understand the depths of the gospel and dive deeper into it and begin to apply it to our life, that's a mark of maturity. We never move on from the gospel, only into a more profound understanding of it, as David Pryor says. Second, the more mature, the more peaceful we are. Paul cannot conceive of a church that's full of mature people that are divided. See, in his understanding of maturity, he only sees peacefulness, grace, forgiveness, bearing each other's burdens. These are the marks of maturity. So he's holding up the mirror. He goes, all right, in this conflict, I'm going to hold it up for you, and I'm going to help you interpret it. Because if you try to self-interpret, it's going to be like a carnival mirror. So here's the thing. You guys right now are immature. So the natural next question we have is, okay, well, how do we grow then? I mean, you got to think that as they're reading this letter from Paul, they're like, okay, you just called us immature. All right, Paul, well, how do we grow? He's going to say in verse 5 through 9, he says this: what then is Apollos? What is Paul? Servants through whom you believed, as the Lord assigned to each. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. He who plants and he who waters are one, but each one will receive his wages according to his labor. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field, God's building. You know, when you're a kid, and some of you may remember this, when you were a kid, you have you're out in recess and you have an argument with another kid that's your age, and you're like, my dad can beat up your dad. My dad can take down your dad. He goes, all right, you guys are like this, I follow this guy, I follow this guy. You guys are like saying it like this, like my pastor can beat up your pastor. Now, you guys are in a church where your pastor can beat up a number of other pastors, and I will get into that ring, just let know. But this is how they sound. This is how ridiculous they sound. Like, my pastor can beat up you. He's better than your pastor. His theology is better than your theology and your pastor's theology. And his preaching is better. His gifting is better. This is better. The way he does it is better. He goes, all right, I need you to rightly understand leadership and how people grow. Because you have a misunderstanding of how people actually grow. Paul goes, all right, I planted. Like, you guys did not hear about Jesus until I arrived. And then I started to tell you about the gospel. I was sowing gospel seeds everywhere. I wanted you to hear the good news of Jesus. So I planted. And then after he left, of course, Apollo came and Apollo watered because plants need water. He goes, but here's what's really key in understanding growth. Only God gives growth. See, we are just servants. God uses leaders. He uses life circumstances to mature and grow us. But the leaders don't get credit for this. The Bible study that you were in, the book that you read, the pastor that you were under does not get credit for the growth that you and I experience. Only God gets the credit. That God used that Bible study. God used that book. God used that pastor as a servant, as an instrument to draw me closer to himself. Now, do notice that Paul didn't minimize the role. He does say, hey, listen, I planted, which is pretty vital. Oh, Apollos watered, pretty vital. But he says we can be doing all the right things and nothing grows. Because spiritual growth is a supernatural work. But the gospel still needs to be planted. Souls still need to be watered. And God uses these individuals, that book, that Bible study to mature us and grow us. So here's what I want you and I to understand about growth. First, growth, we need to provide opportunities for belief in growth. This is really important. We provide opportunities. The Lord, because he grows us and transforms us, and that's a supernatural work, doesn't call us to sit on our hands either. Because some people are like, all right, well, if it's all the Lord's work, then I just sit on my hands. No, remember the final discussion that Jesus has with his disciples. He goes, all right, I want you to go throughout the entire world, and I want you to proclaim the gospel, make disciples, baptize them, and teach them everything I taught you. That's what I want you to do. So Jesus doesn't call us to sit on our hands. No, he actually calls us to do the work of the ministry, but we understand rightly we can't change people. We can't force change, manipulate change, but we provide opportunity. Like right now, I hope you're hearing about how glorious Jesus is. I hope that you trust him maybe for the first time or more than you have before you walked in today. I'll play this out in my family's life. I can't force my kids to follow Jesus. I can't manipulate it. I can't transform their hearts. Again, that's a supernatural work. Here's what I have been given the responsibility of, is to sow as many gospel seeds in their hearts as possible. To provide opportunities for them to trust Jesus and to grow in their faith. And I do that all with this understanding of, again, I can't force it. I can't manipulate it. That's between them and the Lord. They've got to trust him on their own. But I will not sit on my hands as a parent and just allow the world to disciple my kids. No, I won't sit on my hands. I will provide any and every opportunity for them to trust the Lord. And I want them to be a part of a youth group in which they're hearing about Jesus and surrounded by friends that love Jesus. I want them to be in a kids ministry that's teaching them about Jesus. At the house, I want Heather and I to, again, just be sowing as many seeds as possible. Because who knows what the Lord may do with that one seed that's planted. I want to plant as many gospel seeds in their life as possible. But I can't force them to love Jesus. And so I hold that with an open hand. Second, I think growth, we do learn from faithful leaders. God uses pastors, leaders, Bible studies, and books to change us. We're servants. We're instruments. And so you can't dismiss what Paul and Apollos did. God used them in vital ways for the growth and belief of this church. And so we would do well to say, Lord, where you have me, the leadership you have me under, like, Lord, teach me. I want to learn more. Shepherd me through them. And it's not them that gets the credit. It is you and what you're doing in and through them. And last, I think we just simply trust God with the results. So we're throwing as many seeds as possible into the lives of our kids, friends, co-workers, family members, right? We're certainly learning from others, leadership in our life. But then at the end of the day, again, we hold it all with an open hand going, God, only you can give growth. God, only you can change hearts. That's a supernatural act that I am incapable of doing. Let's finish this passage. So he holds up the mirror. He goes, you guys are a bunch of babies, a bunch of baby Christians, as evidenced by your fighting. This is who you are. This is how you grow. I want to teach you how you grow. And finally, he wants them to consider the work and what they're giving their time, energy to. Verse 10. He says, according to the grace of God given to me. It's all a grace upon grace. Like a skilled master builder, I laid a foundation, and someone else is building upon it. Let each one take care how he builds upon it. For no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Christ Jesus. Now, if anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, and precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each one's work will become manifest, for the day will disclose it. Because it will be revealed by fire, and the fire will test what sort of work each one has done. If the work that anyone has built on the foundation survives, he will receive a reward. And if anyone's work is burned up, he will suffer loss, though he himself will be saved, but only as through fire. Do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him, for God's temple is holy, and you are that temple. Here's the mirror. Here's who you truly are. You need to grow. Only God can grow you. And last, I want you to consider what you're giving your life to. He goes, hey, there's no other foundation that can be laid. He's like, by the grace of God, only by grace, I came into this city and I told you about Jesus. And I said, Jesus saves you from your sins. Trust him. You'll be reconciled to God. That was the foundation. But now, after that foundation has been laid and you've trusted in Jesus, what kind of structure, what kind of house are you building? I want you to consider that. See, some of you are building your life on Jesus, and then you're building the walls of your life, the roof. You're building it with precious stones, wood, silver, things that will last. And some of us, we trust Jesus, but then we give our lives to things that just don't last. Straw and hay. Goes, hey, on the day, that glorious day when God reveals the new heaven and new earth, what will last? When the day of judgment comes and God looks at his church, what will last? And there'll be many of us on that day that trusted Jesus, and then try to build a house of straw and hay. And it'll be burned up, and he goes, hey, listen, you are in the kingdom, but there's no great reward for you because you gave your life to things that just don't matter. But some will build the walls of their life and of their church. They'll build it with things that actually do last on the foundation of Jesus. They gave their life to things that matter in light of eternity. So here's two critical questions I think all of us can ask. First, what are we building? The gospel lays the foundation for us. But what are we building? What kind of church are we building? The church in Corinth was building this divisive, argumentative culture. One that will go away, but what kind of church are we building? How about this? What kind of family are you building and I building? These are critical questions because all of us are giving our lives to something. Something's taking our time, our energy, our attention, our affections. So what are we building our life on? And then the next question is, will it last? So what your family gives its life to, what this church gives its time and energy to, will it actually last in light of eternity? On that day, when we stand before the Lord, what we gave everything to, will it matter?